Hi, everyone. I'm Sean at Fire Monkey Studio, and thank you for joining us for this roundtable for Need for Speed No Limits International Women's Day, or Women's History Month, as we're celebrating all month long. What we want to do with this roundtable is talk to some of the people on our game team about how this International Women's Day integration came together, and a bit about what goes on behind the scenes in the game. So joining me today, first up, we've got Erin, who's a member of our game team. She's probably played the game more than anyone here. So Erin, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Super excited. I've also got Alana. So for those of you who watch Real Racing TV, she is my co-host for Game Team. Alana, thanks so much for joining us here.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me. Excited to be part of this roundtable for Need for Speed. First time talking to Need about Need for Speed.
Yeah, super exciting stuff. And last but not least, Darren, an artist we have on Need for Speed No Limits. Darren, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us.
Cheers. Thanks, Sean. Nice to be here.
So what I'd like to do first, before we kind of dive into how this all came together, is just kind of meet everyone so you know who you're talking to out there. So first up, Erin, again, thanks for joining us. I kind of want to go into, what is your history with video games? Did you grow up playing them? Have you never played them before?
Yeah, so, yep, I'm pretty sure I came out of the womb playing video games. Very heavily gaming family. I remember being a little child and watching my brother play or watching my father play before I could actually play myself. Very long history of playing games, still play them. I remember every Sunday we'd get fish and chips and Dad and I would go and play Daytona at the fish and chip shop. We'd always bring a $2 coin so we could have a race together. So racing games have been the day one as well.
Oh, so did you start off playing racing games? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did. Love racing games, and even as a child up to a teenager, playing Need for Speed Underground was one of my favorites. Also, what got me into hip-hop music as well. The music in that game was exceptional.
Oh, yeah. You know what? And our fans are always talking about us trying to bring soundtracks back from Need for Speed games. Oh, if only we could, guys. If only we could. That's really interesting, Erin. And I'll come back to you because I want to know how you got started in the gaming industry. But first, I want to jump over to Alana. What is your history of video games?
I'm literally the exact same thing as Erin. As she was saying, I was thinking that's the same as me. I grew up exposed, I'm the second child, so I watched my older brother play games growing up. So that was sort of how I came into it. And it was even just hearing the sounds, hearing Super Nintendo or Nintendo 64, those iconic sounds just on repeat. And then then it was sort of when neighbors came over and then family friends came over, and then you were allowed to play second or third player. So I got to be third player in Mario Kart with the neighbors and Mario Party and things like that. So it was from a young age. And then as I got older and I was allowed to take charge, I kind of moved to PC games. And by PC games, I mean The Sims. The Sims was my first exposure to being player one. I was always player two growing up. So that was really nice. So I was in charge of my own game. So it's definitely, my big brother got me into it.
That's awesome. That is so cool. And now you work on The Sims.
I know. If you told me at I don't know how old I was in primary school. But yeah, if you told me that I'd be working on The Sims back then, I wouldn't believe you.
Well, I guess, dream big, dreams do come true, right?
Yep.
And then Darren, what's your background with games?
Yeah, so I kind of grew up with video games as well. All my cousins and friends were into video games. I think the first game I ever owned was this old game called Load Runner. I'm not sure if you guys even remember that, but it was this game where it's on platforms and you sort of run around shooting holes, and these monks are all trying to chase you to get the gold. And it was so old, the screen was just all green. There was no colors or anything. And I remember I played it so much, the computer actually blew up. It was just this big gust of, fire and smoke coming out of the machine. I was like, wow, it's pretty intense. So then after that,
what are you playing on? What kind of flammable computer are you playing on?
I think it was an Amiga. But I can't remember exactly what sort it was. It was just old, and Yeah, I just played it so much. Yeah, I just remember the screen used to get really hot as well. And then after that, my cousin had a Commodore 64, so I had to play that a bit because I didn't have a computer anymore. And then when the Sega Mega Drive or the Genesis came out, I'm not sure if you remember that. That was my dad got me one from Singapore, and I was lucky to be, the only kid in my school who had one. So a lot of people would sort of come over and play that. And I remember the covers. As an artist, I loved the covers, and a lot of the time, the art on the covers of these cartridges was actually better than the graphics in game. So yeah, I remember I just played a lot of that, and just loved it.
Oh man, yeah, well look, it's really interesting because like we get to sit around. We've been in lockdown for a year now, so it's hard to sit around and even talk to each other about what kind of got us into it. So it's really interesting to hear everyone's got such a similar background. I won't get into me too much, but I'm like one of the oldest people in the studio, and I grew up with like an Atari and everything. So yeah, from like almost since I could remember, we had like video games in the house, and it's really cool. So I want to go back. So Aaron, so you started off playing racing games. You're a huge Need for Speed fan growing up, and now you work for Need for Speed. Like, what? How did you get into? How did you get into that? Like, how did you get into like gaming as a career?
Gaming as a career, I guess, was something I'd always really wanted to do. I studied game development at university, so my intention was always to make the games myself, not to be QA. Falling into QA was definitely by accident. It was my first job out of uni. But working for Fire Monkeys is my first gaming job. So being able to work on Need for Speed, which I've always been passionate about as a kid, big racing car fan, it was really the dream. But I never thought I'd be able to do it. I guess when you're in uni as a female in a very male-dominated area, a lot of people tell you, oh, you can't do it, especially in Melbourne as well. Like, it's a very small industry, gaming in general, in Australia. So you always dream big, but the reality is often disappointing. But I guess in this case, it was not disappointing. I applied for the job when it came up for Fire Monkeys. Got it pretty quickly. That was very exciting. It all happened very fast. But living the dream at the moment, really. Working in games is, it's exceptional.
Just out of curiosity, did many of your other, fellow students go on to gaming careers as well?
Good question. I think maybe a couple of it. But nobody that I was directly friends with. Actually, Sam, that we work with in the studio, was the year above me at uni. So he's now in games. But besides that, not many others are actually in the gaming industry, which, goes to speak of how hard it is to actually get into the industry full stop.
Yeah, it is really interesting, like what a small community we have. And we keep seeing, people here at Fire Monkeys, like moving on and coming back, and you just run into people all the time. So let me ask Aaron, like you're in QA, which a lot of people actually within the studio kind of got their start in QA and have moved around and stuff. Where would you love to go? Like, what would you actually love to be doing?
QA.
Good answer. All right. QA all the way. All right.
And it is, most of the QAs that I've met, it is kind of the entry to games. And I think a lot of people mistake QA as almost the easy job. And I like to liken what QA does as like housework. Nobody really notices when the housework's being done. You just sort of take it for granted. But it's not until that the housework isn't done that you go, oh, the housework's not being done, or the dishes weren't done, or anything like that. So that's what I like to think of QA as. And as undervalued as we are in QA, I am very passionate about good quality, very passionate about bugs. I can sometimes get a little bit heated. QA is definitely where I want to stay for the foreseeable future, really.
Oh, that is awesome. And hey, look, I For one, so I don't have a gaming background. Like my background was in television, and this is my first gaming job. But I think QA has got to be one of the tougher jobs in terms of just like the amount of things you have to keep track of and check and recheck, and yeah.
Yeah, and it all feels so personal. I know for a while I was obsessively reading the Reddit page that we've got for Need for Speed, and I had to stop because I was taking it all so personally. I'm like, oh God, they're finding this bug and they're not going to play it anymore. And I'm like, I had to stop reading it because I do involve myself a little too much in how well the game is going.
Yes, and look, you know what? I think a lot of the people on the game team, we all surf Reddit. I know I've been involved with Reddit, not lately, and I know I'm going to get some flack for that. I'm still listening, guys. I'm still around, but I think we all do take it personally because we genuinely want this to be something that players love.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Alana, how did you get into gaming as a career?
Yeah, I'm sort of like similar to you, Sean. It wasn't. I come from like a communications and marketing background, so you don't really study comms for gaming. So I was in education prior to this, straight out of uni, doing like community and social media marketing, and then I saw the job for EA, and I was like, oh my God, okay, I'm gonna apply for this. There's no way I'm gonna get this. Like, this is massive. These are like massive games. I didn't even really know we had a studio in Melbourne. So I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I'm like, you know what? I love games. Like, I'm passionate about it. It's something that I can relate to and it's really enjoyable. And I think it'd be quite a good challenge as well. As we know, like, our players are so passionate and they know the game inside out. And I was like, this would be a really good challenge as someone who's in community and engagement, because you're getting feedback and communication from players 24/7. So I applied with the fact that I really loved video games as a passion on the side, and yeah, it was successful. So that was really exciting. Like, I never thought, like we were saying before, I never thought I would end up working on a game that I was playing from such a young age. That actually had a big impact on my life and like my gaming, and Sims for me was really important growing up. I spent many hours on that. But yeah, now playing like racing games, Need for Speed, like you mention that to anyone and they're like, oh my gosh, wow, like you work for such a big company. And like EA gets a bit of like flack every now and then, a bit of negativity, but actually working for them is really, really fantastic. I've had a great experience so far, and you get to work with amazing people like this on the call every day.
Yeah, it's true. And, what I like about what we're talking about here with everyone is like we have a really nice cross section of people who are in like different disciplines. And I think, you went to school for communications and I went to school for, television and stuff like that. And we've kind of fallen into it. So it's really nice to see that you can use those skills that maybe you don't think about and kind of they translate into other areas within gaming.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think game development itself, like, you want to get into gaming, but even for someone who is watching this, who's in marketing or legal or finance or anything, like your opportunities like are open for any kind of career, and gaming is really, really fun, and there are options out there.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true. Yeah, you can almost anything. We're a big company, a small studio within a big company, and yeah, there's a lot of different opportunities. That's really good points. Very good point.
Thanks.
So Darren, how did you get into gaming as a career? Obviously, your artwork is fantastic. The players have been loving the stuff that you've been doing. How did you come about, getting into games and then working for Fire Monkeys?
So I got into games in a very roundabout sort of way. I was a little bit like Erin. Everyone would say, "Oh, it's impossible to get into games" and that sort of thing. So originally, I went to uni to study computer science. So I did that for 4 years. And I spent probably more time drawing, on the textbooks than I actually did paying attention. So that should have been a bit of a clue where I wanted to go. So after that, after I finished my degree, I kind of floated around a little bit. I didn't enjoy doing programming at that stage all that much. I actually enjoy it more now, funnily enough. But I worked a bunch of, just random jobs like door-to-door selling, phone services for Optus, telesales for, corporate training and and fertilizer. I just remember.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember the place. The call center was in the same factory as the fertilizer, and the place just smelled of manure all the time.
Oh.
Yeah, so I lasted like a week before I was like, hey, I got another job, and I quit. I didn't get another job. I just didn't want to work there anymore. So anyway, after that, I went to health food. I was really into sort of like health for a while, and I actually met someone there. So most of the people that went to this health food store would go there to sort of get, protein powders and sort of, get to the gym and that. So one day a customer came in, and we just got chatting. He wanted to kind of buff up, and then I don't know what we were talking about, but he was like, hey, I'm starting a video game company. And I was like, oh, really? That's awesome. That's so cool. And I just happened to have like a book of art, of illustration and concept art just in the back that I'd sort of read on my lunch break. And I was like, oh, I'll show you sort of stuff that I do. So I brought this art book out, and I showed him, and I said, look, this is the sort of stuff that I love doing in my spare time. And he's like, oh, that's really cool. So I'm basically pitching myself on someone else's artwork, saying, look, this is stuff that I do. And it wasn't, I hardly even touched it. And he was like, oh, feel free to send some stuff through. And I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. So that night I actually went home and taught myself how to do some artwork. Like I'd been doing art on and off, but not kind of seriously. I sent through some artwork the following day, and he got back to me and was like, hey, would you like to sort of come down and have a chat about things? And so I did. It was the most unprofessional sort of setting. The interview was terrible. We barely really said anything to each other. It was more, we sat down and played PS2 for like 3 hours, and then I ended up with a job. So yeah, that was pretty much my start in it. And yeah, just kind of, spent every day for a couple of years just learning how to be an artist after I magically got the job. So yeah, that's how I got into games.
Wow. So the two takeaways I'm seeing are, one, just be nice to everyone because you never know who's going to start their own company. And two is just, fake it till you make it, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. So I faked that. So I've been doing this for almost 16 years now. So I've been faking it a long time.
That's amazing. It is funny how, people, it can be kind of intimidating. And I think, like, as Aaron said, like, not everyone, who goes to school for this thing either is able to or even decides they want to do it. So, I think, if you find something out there that you want, that you should go for it. Right. I mean, I think we could all agree on that.
Yep. Yeah. And I just wanted to add as well, like, if anyone's sort of thinking of applying for, roles in video games, I think, if you're a student, that's great. And you have a very strong sort of foundation of learning. But I think, and it's true of a lot of the people that I sort of meet, especially in the art field. I'm not sure about the other fields, but we do a lot of extracurricular things as well. It's like we're always learning. We're always finding new ways of doing things, finding tutorials that we sort of watch. And it's kind of almost a lifestyle. And so I'm not sure, what Aaron would sort of say about that, but yeah, it's like we're always living it and trying to improve. And that's, very highly kind of looked at when you're kind of going for jobs, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So, I kind of want to bring it back to, Women's History Month, International Women's Day that we're working on. So to kind of give context on this, I will say, like, basically, one thing I love about working on Need for Speed No Limits is that the community, they really illustrate this all the time. And we, as a game team, we work on this is self-expression. And, the way that we're able to kind of bring in, obviously we've worked with Steve Aoki, we've worked with, the Hundreds and Madballs. Last year we worked with Cruella, the female-led duo music group, which was amazing. So, we're able to kind of bring these things in and, for these external partners, and then, allow players to like earn these things, to like showcase them on their cars, to kind of do self-expression. And we wanted to do something with International Women's Day because it's something that we all find very, important. So, this is kind of a way for players to, support support women, to, if our female players, to be able to showcase, these wraps on their cars, something we haven't done before. But the other thing is, we really wanted to give our internal women the chance to kind of do some things. So, Alana, you worked with Darren on one of the wraps, one of the 2 wraps. So, what was the kind of process with that? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, it was really interesting. It was funny how it did come about, the first conversation. We were just sitting around in a content meeting, and I remember, Sean, you said, let's do something for International Women's Day and Women's History Month. It was out of nowhere, and everyone jumped on board, and they said, this is such a great idea. We've never done it before. So we had the whole team backing us, and then we had our little crew, and we were like, all right, we had our own little channels. Like, all right, what are we going to do that's going to be different, that we've never really done before in the form of a wrap? And yeah, I guess I'm not an artistic person. I can't draw to save my life, and even to explain things, I don't know how to visualize it. So I've gone to Darren and said, oh, these are things I'd love to see. I would love to see maybe some trans representation in the wrap as well. Women's History Month is really important, and then International Women's Day, they've got a hashtag that they're using, which is all about choosing to challenge. And so I kind of just dumped a few words to Darren, and then Darren did his magic and made this incredible wrap. And that was really cool. Darren and I, we went back and forth. He would send me photos and of how the wrap was going in progress, and then I give feedback. Mostly it was, Darren, you're amazing. But also, I'd be love to see this part added or this element added to include this representation. So yeah, it was a learning experience, but it was very two-way as well, which was really cool. I mean, Darren did all the heavy lifting, but it was still really fun to be part of it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I think we've got 2 wraps. Sahan did one. Sahan, who's not on the call today, but Sahan does a lot of our key art, so I think players are really familiar with his work. And then, yeah, Darren did the other one that we can kind of showcase. So, Darren, you had a lot of really interesting tidbits and flourishes that you put into the car. So, can you go through just a couple of those and your thought process?
Yeah, sure, no worries. And just to reflect, Alana, it was, the stuff that we discussed, it was really important to me, because before I go into that, Sean, I was pretty nervous kind of going into this, because obviously I'm not a woman, so I've only kind of really understood the issues that women kind of have to face vicariously from discussions with my wife, and I credit her with a lot of eye-opening in the last 10 years that we've been together. So having Alana and JC and Ali at certain times to really get ideas from, I thought was super important, because I think when you're creating artwork, you kind of have this idea in your mind, or a few different ideas, and they could be wrong. So if I didn't have, say, Alana to kind of, bounce ideas off, I could be completely going down the wrong path and not know anything about that. So yeah, that was, Alana says I did a lot of the heavy lifting. A lot of the very crucial stuff happens right at the start, especially with the research. So, it's really important, that stuff. So anyway, some of this stuff that I thought was quite very interesting that Alana gave feedback to, things like trans representation and stuff. I wanted to capture a lot of that in what I would call the textural aspects of the wrap. So it's not sort of in your face, but there's symbolism where if you get to have a look at it a little bit closer, there's things that kind of mean certain things. There's the trans sort of symbol there. There's also other things. For instance, there's a rocket, which I thought was quite a cool symbol to have, because it represented, for me anyway, and I checked this with the Women's Ultimate team, was it represented Margaret Hamilton's sort of crucial work on getting the first astronauts to the moon, by leading sort of the software team. So it represented that, but also as an icon to symbolize that there's no limits on what women can sort of achieve. So that's just one example of that. And there's also I kind of like to make things a little bit personal for the team. So, for instance, there was little symbols for a paintbrush for your daughter Sean, because she's an important person in your life, and just little things like that that I just kind of wanted to put onto the wrap to make it a little bit more special for the team as well.
I think it turned out it's a really striking, it's a very different looking wrap than we've had before, and I think it does. There's so much packed into it that I think if there wasn't that right balance, it could be kind of overwhelming. But you really struck that perfect balance, so it turned out very nicely.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, it was definitely one of those things where, because the research uncovered so much useful and really important things, it's like it's a real challenge to sometimes go, well, what do I sort of include and what do I not? Because it's very easy to go, well, I want to include everything, and then it becomes like a Homer Simpson rap. It's like got everything, and it's just people go, what's that? That's crazy. So yeah, it hurts sometimes because you kind of have to cut things that's really important, but it's part of the kind of greater whole that kind of have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the last thing I'd like to touch on just real quick is just about women in gaming, and also any advice for women who want to get into gaming. So Aaron, let me kind of talk to you just real quick. I think at Fire Monkeys, we're pretty lucky that we do have women in basically all levels from leadership on down. So do you feel like in terms of being a woman in gaming that you're represented enough, and that there's things that you're really proud of, or things you like to strive for? And then how do we get more women into gaming as a career?
That's a really good question. I think the problem is a lot of women feel discouraged about getting into male-dominated fields, either by the men themselves or, their own insecurities of feeling like they don't want to be the odd one out. I think we just need to persist and don't let anybody tell us that we can't do something, regardless of what it is, even for men or women or really anyone. Everyone shouldn't listen to a no. You know what I mean? We should, if this is what we really want to do, you should persist and keep going, and don't stop until you get what you're after. In regards to the women representation at Fire Monkeys, there can always be more. I will say that there's definitely always room for more. But I think in terms of women in leadership at EA and at Fire Monkeys, the representation is exceptional. All of the women in what one would deem as powerful positions are very down to earth. They are exceptionally experienced and some of the nicest people that I have met, just in general, really. I mean, the whole studio is full of just lovely, friendly people, and you can really lean on anyone's shoulder. But the women community, I think, in Fire Monkeys as a whole, stepping into working here was something that I hadn't experienced before. It really is just a beautiful little community or family. And I know that sounds awful cliche, but it really is. We have women's ultimate meetings quite regularly, not always able to attend, but that everybody there has your back, and anybody there will support you with absolutely anything. And they really do want to see everyone else do well. Like, there is absolutely no female competition or anything like that. It really is supportive and just a beautiful little community.
Oh, nicely said. But I completely see that. I think, as we kind of go into these things where we're looking for like, how do we, do more diversity and inclusion stuff and represent, our player base is extremely diverse. People from all around the world, as I sit here as a white, American male, it seems a little odd, but it's something I really believe in. And I do look at, everyone from the team, to get feedback and like, are we doing the right thing? How does this feel? So I think that what you said, Aaron. Yeah, there can always be more female representation or any kind of representation. But Fire Monkeys is kind of cool because it does. We're a bit of a melting pot. Everyone's kind of from all over the world, and it's really cool. So Alana, how about you? Same question. Like, how do you feel in terms of like, women representation and how women can get into gaming?
Yeah, the same thing. Like, there's always room for more women. Just because there's one woman in the room doesn't mean that that's your spot taken. And I always think if you're not going to take this position, someone else will, whether that be a man or a female, like, or however they identify. So do what's best for you. If you want it, no matter who you are, go for it, because it's there to be taken, and the best person will most likely get the role. I know definitely in Fire Monkeys, like, everyone that I work with is extremely talented, and all different backgrounds. Like, we work with people from around the world. Like, every day I'm talking to people from India. We've got people in Russia, in America, Sweden. It's everywhere. So it's really cool to actually even meet different people and other women from different cultures and countries around the world. But yeah, like, mainly going back on it, it's you take what you deserve, and if you want the role, you go for it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is kind of funny is I think both like Alana, I know you mentioned you're like, oh, I didn't know if I would get this job and applying for it, but I was complete transparency. I was on the panel when we interviewed you and everything, but you walked in and just killed it. It was awesome. We kind of knew, oh, this is the one. That was great. And I think, I applied, the same thing. Like, I moved to Australia. I didn't have a job lined up. I literally just answered an ad. It didn't even say who it was for. It just said entertainment or something. So, but I think, people out there, women, anyone should just, go for it, because you just never know. A lot of it is just, persisting. It's amazing. Well, thanks, everyone. I think, this was great. And I think, it gives a little bit of insight about what we, the thought process and, what we're looking to do. Always looking for, how do we represent our player base? How do we represent, internally everyone? So, watch out for some other cool things. And everyone, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for you watching, we will see you in game and at the starting line.